All I hear is talking, I don't sweat that. If they don't trust me either, I respect that. If she be down the ride, oh, I bet that.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is JH. How y'all doing, Postal family? Is everybody good? Is everybody cool? Everybody clean? Is everybody crisp? Are you feeling irie? Let's talk. But first, y'all like how that goes together. Hey, listen, we've been making a couple videos talking about our unions and talking about UPS, our brothers over there in the brown. And I like the way that they are going through their process. They're fighting together. They're standing together. They're united. And I made a video the other day. Didn't gain much traction, but hopefully this one does. I'm going to actually have two parts to this video. So if you want, you can fast forward to the end. First part, I'm going to show you the history. It's a little clip from another creator, and it tells you the importance behind the United States Postal Service and what we do. And I'd like for you guys to see what it was then, how it molded the way we are today, and obviously what we're looking forward to in the future, because what it was then and what it is now, totally different. Second part, I'm gonna run through a couple of emails and one comment just to give you guys some feedback on what you guys tend to write me, and we'll go from there. Third part of this, just from my perspective, to the person that said I need to cut my nails, I think that you are definitely paying attention to the wrong thing. If you're worried about my nails, that's definitely, yeah. See, that's where our problem lies. You will hear a full video full of information and you'll worry about what Jay's nails look like. That doesn't make sense to me. Nonetheless, let's get to the video and we will comment on it and get into some information after. All right, let's chat.
Listen up. This is literally why the United States would not exist without the post office. The term post comes from the Latin positus, meaning position or station, as really what makes a postal service work is its series of relay locations. In medieval times, these locations were mostly taverns, where you could pick up your mail and exchange a little gossip from afar for a pint. For much of history, pretty much before the invention of the telegram, letters were pretty much the only way to communicate over a distance further than you could walk. Or yell. Mail was the best way to get news about the rest of the world. That is, if you could read and write, which most people couldn't do. So it was mostly a tool of the wealthy. With the age of exploration came a greater need to communicate over distance. But Europeans struggled to set up a postal system inside the wilds of the New World. Even if the colonists were people who left or were kicked out of Europe for some reason, they were still obsessed with what they considered home. So the official colonial postal system of the 1600s was primarily tailored to sending letters across the Atlantic. Sending messages between the colonies was a treacherous job, often given to slaves, if done at all. And England liked it this way. The less connected the colonies were, the less likely they were to realize that they were outgrowing that little island across the sea. This was the status quo for the next 100 years, until a new generation of people born in the colonies started to not care as much about Europe. This included the Postmaster of Philadelphia, who in 1753 was promoted to Postmaster General. Weirdly, you may have heard of him, just a little guy named Benjamin Franklin. Like many early postmasters, Franklin was a printer and newspaper publisher by trade, and knew that for his readership to grow, so did the postal system. First thing was building post roads between the major cities. Largely based on Native American trails, these were the first interstates, and many of them would go on to be the basis of routes that would become the modern-day highway system. Franklin also added overnight shipping between New York and Philadelphia, standardized postage based on weight and distance, and decreased newspaper shipping rates, which, yes, helped his business, but he can be excused because once the flow of information opened up between the colonies, they got talking. and the Crown's worst fears became a reality. Even though his changes had turned the struggling colonial post profitable, in 1774, England sacked Ben Franklin as Postmaster General for siding with the revolutionaries. This only freed him to spend more time on the cause. And a year later, in 1775, the Constitutional Post was founded, and Benjamin Franklin made the Postmaster General. Which means, yes, the United States Post Office is older than the United States itself. Once Ben Franklin got the post office in order, he shot off to France to gain their support for the revolution, and also to enjoy all the French things that he loved, like wine and cheese and ladies. After the war, the earliest version of America under the messy Articles of Confederation was far from a nation. It was more of a region of loosely connected, self-ruling states with very different interests. Long story short, it is a flat-out miracle it survived through the writing of the Constitution. Upon being voted in as president, George Washington quickly realized that the only way this new country had stood a chance was if the people were more connected to each other and the government. His answer? Mail. Proponents of the post office, like Washington and Benjamin Rush, argued that it acted as an outpost for the federal government in every town in the country. The post office also created a more informed electorate by not only subsidizing the distribution of newspapers, but promoting the importance of reading and writing. Remember, democracy was a brand new concept, and not even everyone in America agreed with it. All of this post office stuff angered those that didn't want a central government carving roads or gaining too much power. They just overthrew a monarch after all. Also, richer landowners, not exactly fans of their workers or slaves becoming more educated as to what was happening around the new country and world. Rich people, always the worst. Racism, always a problem. Meanwhile, although probably no one has ever loved writing letters more, Alexander Hamilton, Secretary of the Treasury, believed that the Postal Service should be able to support itself financially. Upon its creation, the Postal Service Act of 1792 turned the pretty abstract concept of democracy into a reality by bringing mail service, and in turn newspapers and information, to the entire population instead of just the rich. The post office was deemed so vital, it is one of the few government agencies explicitly authorized in the Constitution. But in compromise, one of the only that is expected to not turn a profit while basically sustaining itself on only its own revenue. This act also made the mail one of the first and strongest examples of our First Amendment, which was only written a year before. As any child in America will tell you, it is a crime to open another person's mail. Partly because at the time it was the only way to send money. Stealing mail was initially punishable by death. And as America grew, it was the post that was at the very forefront of this expansion. For most of the country's existence, it was mostly wilderness, and the postal system was the initial force cutting roads and eventually railroads to connect all of these new pockets of America together. A town was not a town until it had a post office. And truthfully, few people would have ventured west without this kind of link to the world. Now, you might know in his farewell speech, George Washington called America the Great Experiment. What he was referring to was that never in history had so many different types of people been united into one. And he and many of the founders were very afraid, and some very sure, that it would collapse. The post office was one of the most important safeguards to prevent this. Today, although it might be easy to write it off as outdated, the post carries everything from your subscription drugs to your vote to all those weird late-night impulse buys online. It was what made this country whole. Attacking the post office is attacking America's democracy.
So, what'd you think? What'd you think? Interesting? Did you fall asleep on the history? History has to be looked at in order to understand what we are as a whole. Why we represent this place to such, a high standard. Where are the high standards when it comes to, management and our co-workers? Who knows? People will fuss and say, hey, If we brought back the old tests, it would eliminate the foolishness. People say if we had more consequences for people that actually just call out all the time, things would change. People say if we get rid of management, things would change. People say. But here's the truth. And we have to understand that truth is love without watering it down. We can tell the truth, still love the place without watering it down. And that's what I do. I love this place and I try not to water it down. And a lot of people get offended by that. Nonetheless, it is what it is. But somebody wrote me, and I will not go into names on this one. We spoke about a plant in Atlanta not too long ago, about them having no air conditions, people working in a sweat box. And somebody wrote me back and told me that because of what was going on, or possibly because of the video, they ended up having a town hall with the plant manager, and they mentioned that they are going to move the machine that was inside that sweat box out into the normal post office. So that's a good thing. I don't know if it was because they heard me, barking at a supervisor, but it is what it is. It's just ironic that, I happen to actually put one specific name out there, which I usually never do. And then all of a sudden they say, you know what, let's change it up. It is true. We don't need people working in unrealistic conditions. And obviously our postmaster, Mr. DeJoy, doesn't really, he's not moving fast enough. In my opinion, he's not moving fast enough. But then on the flip side of it, he's only been postmaster for 2.5 years, so we will see. And then all of a sudden they started hiring new supervisors at this place, which is great. So again, I'm not going to put that, person's information out there, but, thank you for, following up with that. Person that used to work at the UPS, not USPS. He writes, this video directly explains why I resigned after 11 years of 12 to 14 hour work days. That's what the UPS guys do. People leave here and say, I'm gonna go UPS, go make me a ton of money. Hey, y'all saw that video. It ain't always peaches and cream on the other side. Started here, United States Postal Service, as a TTO, tractor trailer operator, in January, totally based on an interview. The understanding was that I was guaranteed that wasn't happening here. No 12 to 14 hour work days. You know why we don't have those? Because they don't want to pay that V time. It's part of that union thing. In those 11 years, if it was only Sunday on vacation, that the wife, I would fall asleep and wake up together. So that's how they work, man. 6 days a week over there at UPS. It's rough. Those guys make some good money if they're on the first tier. Guess what? These last 6 months, we do every single day, morning and freaking night. Ha ha ha. Yeah, get it, brother, get it. Meaning that he's actually enjoying his family, which is good. And that's here. A lot of people say that they can't do that here, which is amazing to me because, once you finally become career, you can get it. Long as you're able to, work-life balance, you're able to do it. He said, the best move ever, great quality of life, plus the job is absolutely amazing. And then he says at the end, my UPS brothers ain't playing no more. The moral of that was, we have people here, we have people there, we have our FedEx brothers, we have our UPS brothers, we have all the other delivery companies. They are making mass changes and they are trying to cut not profits, but cut labor. They're trying to penny pinch. They're trying to do things just so that they can make money. Mr. DeJoy, not a fan of a lot of things that he stands for, but overall, I personally am ready to see this play out. I want to see how it plays out, but it takes for all of us to be informed, keep your ear to the ground, pay attention to your surroundings, because we can win. We can win. We can win in our quest to just have a normal work-life balance without the badgering, without the hate, without the foolishness. It's not always about the ex-military. It's none of that silliness. And, we can make it happen if we all put things together. And this wasn't supposed to be an animated video, so I'm not going to make it animated. Nonetheless, Father's Day is coming up. Don't shut it off yet. So we have somebody that wrote me, and I'm going to leave a link to their page, their Instagram or whatever, in the pinned comment. They make t-shirts as well. Difference is between this individual and my friend is they're a military vet. We love the vets, regardless of. We love the vets. So if you guys take a click on that individual's site, look at some of the stuff that he does, because he does, he does some excellent work. Support our military vets. That's the bottom line. Beautiful shirts. I'm not sure what else he does, because I don't have Instagram, so I can only look but so far. But if you guys feel like you want to support, the people that fought for us, please do. Please do. And thank you very much for, I said it before, if you guys have anything that you'd like for me to put out there to the postal world, please shoot me an email and I will send it out for everybody. And just support your brothers and sisters. All right? This is JH with a little bit. And we out.